Iran has started to carry out its threats, and now the scenario of oil prices reaching $200 per barrel is not that far-fetched. In addition to mining the Strait of Hormuz, Iran today attacked a port in Oman, which the Gulf countries had been using to bypass the Hormuz blockade. In addition, oil and gas production has already been halted in several countries in the region, which further destabilizes the market. As a result, today at the headquarters of Iran's military command, Khatam al-Anbiya announced that Iran is moving from retaliatory strikes to constant attacks on its opponents and that the US will not be able to control oil prices. In Tehran, it was announced that from now on they will sink any vessel attempting to pass through the Hormuz Strait, which means a total blockade. And so in Tehran, they announced that you should prepare for the price of a barrel of oil. In response, members of the International Energy Agency, which unites more than 30 countries, unanimously agreed today to use a third of their strategic oil reserves in order to eliminate disruptions in the oil markets caused by the war in the Middle East. And Donald Trump has given the order to eliminate the ships that are currently mining the Strait of Hormuz. But the key event was still today's attack, Iran's attack on Oman, which is now radically changing the situation. I'm Alexei Pecci, let's discuss this together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel. Pecci News, the link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, Iran has moved to constant attacks on its opponents and the US will not be able to control oil prices. But such a statement was made today by Ebrahim Zalfakari, a representative of Iran's military command headquarters, Khatam al-Anbiya. Next, I will quote him. "We will not allow a single liter of oil to reach the US, Israel, or their partners. Any ship or tanker heading to them will be legitimate targets. Get ready for the price of oil to reach $200 per barrel because the price of oil depends on regional security, which you have destabilized." And right after that, American intelligence confirmed that Iranian military forces began placing mines in the shipping channel of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is using a small vessel for mining, which is capable of carrying 2 to 3 mines on board. And here's an interesting point. There is no public data on the number of mines Iran has. But estimates over the years have ranged from about 2,000 to 6,000 naval mines of Iranian, Chinese, and Russian manufacture. In short, if they want to, they really can mine it. Today, the American military reported that they destroyed Iranian warships near the Strait of Hormuz, including 16 mine layers that were used for mining. But despite this, Iran still retains about 80% of its small boats and mine layers, and these forces are quite capable of placing hundreds of mines in the fairway. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which effectively controls the Strait of Hormuz along with Iran's traditional navy, is capable of establishing a corridor from dispersed mine-laying vessels as well as boats packed with explosives and coastal missile batteries. In short, the capabilities for a blockade really exist. But Iran went even further. Today, in the strategic port of Salalah in southern Oman, there was a drone attack. The drone strikes hit oil storage facilities. As a result of the attack, fuel tanks were damaged. And now, judging by the footage online, which you can see on my Telegram channel Pecci News, 2 columns of black smoke are rising above the port, but one of the facilities is engulfed in flames. The large-scale fire at the facility has been visually confirmed. The air defense systems managed to intercept some of the drones, but some of them reached their targets. As a result, the operation of this port, Salalah in Oman, has been halted. And here it's important to understand that this is no longer just an attack. This is actually an attempt to show that Iran is serious. The thing is, this particular port allows the countries of the Persian Gulf to transport oil bypassing the Strait of Hormuz. And in Tehran, they understand this perfectly well. It is officially reported that Saudi Arabia has slightly reduced its oil production by only 300,000 barrels per day. But at the same time, Riyadh last week suspended operations at the Ras Tanura oil refinery, which has a capacity of 550,000 barrels per day, and began redirecting oil shipments from the eastern ports in the Persian Gulf itself to the Red Sea. Here, let me remind you that Saudi Arabia does have an oil pipeline running across the entire country, which leads to the Red Sea, and there they can easily ship oil. Abu Dhabi's oil giant ADNOC shut down the Ruwais refinery with a capacity of 922,000 barrels per day after a drone strike caused a fire. Kuwait Petroleum Corporation has started to reduce oil production. Iraq has cut oil production by 70%. In addition, a number of companies in Iraqi Kurdistan have completely stopped oil production. Qatar stopped production at its LNG facilities back on March 2nd, and Qatar is the source of about 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas supplies. Bahraini Babco Energies declared force majeure on Monday at the Sitra refinery, which has a capacity of 380,000 barrels per day. On the other hand, Israeli strikes on Iran affected several fuel storage facilities and, very importantly, Karg Island. This is Iran's main oil export terminal. But the extent of the damage caused there is still not fully clear. Overall, as of today, Middle Eastern refineries have reduced their oil processing capacity by 2 million barrels per day. As for the Strait of Hormuz, despite repeated statements by Donald Trump about the U.S. Navy's readiness to escort tankers through the strait, the American fleet still rejects such requests from industry representatives, citing the risk of attacks as being too high. So, once again, Trump says, tankers, don't be afraid, go through the strait. If anything happens, the American fleet will cover you. When these tankers contacted the American fleet, they warned of a high risk of attacks and refused to provide escort. In response to what is happening, members of the International Energy Agency unanimously agreed today to use a third of their strategic reserves to eliminate disruptions in the oil markets. Let me remind you, the organization includes 32 countries and all of them will sell 400 million barrels of oil on the markets. In total, by the way, they have 1.2 billion barrels in the form of government reserves, plus governments can take up to 600 million barrels from the reserves of commercial companies. As a result, there are always 1.8 billion barrels in reserves. I should note that this release of oil from reserves is the sixth such operation since 1974, when this agency was created. The previous largest release was 182 million barrels in 2022 after Russia's full-scale attack on Ukraine. It's also important to mention issues in the gas market. A number of Qatar Energy's clients, including Shell and Total Energies, as well as other companies operating in Asia, have declared force majeure on deliveries to buyers of Qatari liquefied natural gas. That's why market players are sure that even if the war ends today, the consequences will be felt for several more months. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation or a paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code on your screen. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.